Good evening, friends. Welcome to the India Power Talk. I am truly humbled with your encouraging messages on the previous talks, and I have to sincerely thank you all for the same. I have been receiving valuable suggestions and inputs from many of you, which I would certainly try to take them in our next following sessions. As you know, India Power Talk, in association with Indian Chamber of Commerce, the oldest chamber of chambers in India, Law Sikho, India's largest online education company, and now we also have India SME Accelerator Network, is an initiative wherein we invite international leaders to seek their insights, experience, strategies on how to revive Indian economy. We would be inviting entrepreneurs, economists, professors, investment bankers, scientists, lawyers, chartered accountants, and professionals having experience from diverse sectors who could contribute on the subject. Salah Kandri, the global head of education, in his report published in the World Economic Forum in May 2020, observed that the pandemic has not just shuttered economies around the world, but has also battered education system in developing and developed countries. Some 1.5 billion students, close to 90% of all primary, secondary, and tertiary learners in the world, are no longer able to physically go to schools and colleges. The impact has been dramatic and transformative as educators scramble to put in place workable short-term solutions for remote teaching and learning, particularly in emerging markets, where students and schools face additional challenges related to financing and available infrastructure. And to talk on this subject and his experiences and ideas, we have today a distinguished and action-oriented Dean of Texas A&M University, Robert Ahdieh. Sir, I have privilege and pleasure to welcome you to the India Power Talk. Could you begin by sharing your impressions on the importance of US-India relationship and global education before we really go into further subjects?
Let me begin by thanking you, Mr. Puttar, for having me here to participate in the India Power Talk. Of course, we know that the United States and India are the two largest democracies in the world. There are challenges to democratic rule in the world today and to democratic liberalism in the world today that are critical challenges and are ones that it is important that democratic nations come together, understand one another, engage one another, learn from one another in a meaningful way. We are now at an inflection point when the future really will be shaped by the economic engagement of India and the United States in a way that it has never been before. Against the backdrop then of those two things, it seems to me that academic engagement between India and the United States, economic engagement, even social engagement and understanding are all vitally important. As human knowledge advances and grows increasingly in a geometric fashion, the level of education necessary to thrive and survive in today's world is that much greater. The reality is that as the world becomes more economically interdependent, as technology makes it truly a smaller world, the need for us to be educated, not just more educated, but more globally educated, is that much more important. I think for India in particular, there is opportunity in global education because of the the youth of the population as a demographic matter, and the consequent benefits and power of or impact of more education and more global education in terms of job opportunities, in terms of networking opportunities, and really in terms of being meaningfully connected with the world.
The adoption of online solution in the recent months has been unprecedented. As Mr. Kandri in his report published in the World Economic Forum has rightly observed, that the pandemic has been a great leveler in a way giving all stakeholders, including educators, learners, policymakers, and society at large in the developed and the developing countries, a better understanding of our current education systems and more so the vulnerability and the shortcomings. More fundamentally, COVID-19 is causing us a challenge, deep-rooted notions of how we deliver education, of the role of colleges and universities, the importance of lifelong learning, and the distinction we draw between traditional and non-traditional learners. How do you see the evolution of online education and cross-border engagement between various universities?
Those who stop learning after their PhD will, within 10 to 15 years, be no longer viable employees, no longer will be viable sources of knowledge, so on and so forth. So when we think about who will be the students at Indian universities, at US universities, at my university, Texas A&M University, they will increasingly be folks who have been in the workforce for 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even 20 and 30 years, but who are coming back to build their knowledge again so they are prepared for the next 10 and 20 and 30 years of their working life. For similar reasons, a second phenomenon in terms of where education is going, I think that's important, is this notion of stackable credentials. Increasingly, the way knowledge and education looks is one acquires a certain educational credential, could be a certificate. It could even be just a single course or an executive education program. If that program is valuable, opens the pathway to additional learning opportunities, I might then do another course that builds on that initial course, right? Now I've taken 2 courses or 2 certificates. Now we go beyond that and do a further one. So we are at the moment, Texas A&M University is talking about a variety of programs in India in terms of educational programs, not just for lawyers, I should say, but also for engineers and for physicians and for folks in finance and computer science whose work intersects with law and regulation and the like. But the way we are structuring it is, we are structuring it in the form of certificates that someone earns 1 certificate, and if they finish that certificate and they are done, they have earned their certificate. But they can choose then to earn a second certificate and to stack that certificate on top of the first one. The third way in which it's changing is it is increasingly interdisciplinary. The nature of educational programs is such that we recognize that because knowledge is increasingly interdisciplinary, education must likewise be
Absolutely.
interdisciplinary in that fashion. So
Absolutely.
to say I'm a great engineer, but I don't know anything about political science or law or regulation
or finance for that matter,
or finance, exactly, will not suffice.
absolutely. I fully agree there. In fact, as a corporate lawyer, I'm seeing that, along with the law degree, I wish I had also the commerce degree to help me
Right.
understand the balance sheets and financials of the companies. So I encourage a lot of young students these days that if you wish to become a corporate lawyer, you must understand finances, you must understand balance sheet.
Exactly.
Most importantly, you must understand how do you market yourself.
That's exactly. So that's a perfect example. And turning to online education then, it seems to me online education, offers opportunity in 3 important ways. Again, the first is in terms of access and affordability. So again, I mentioned to you, we are now building programs. Texas A&M University, my law school, is building programs in India. The cost of those programs will be less than half of what the cost is to earn that degree here in the United States. If knowledge is more important than ever, we need to find a way for the masses to have access to education rather than it being limited to the elite. We are building programs in India that will create opportunities for Indian lawyers to sit alongside US lawyers, but not just that, also Saudi Arabian lawyers and German lawyers and Chinese lawyers. Now, that educational environment is basically putting our students, putting our future graduates in exactly the setting in which you as a corporate lawyer practice today. When you go into a corporate negotiation, the person across the table may be Indian, but they may be German and they may be Japanese and whatever. And so if you have earned an education in a setting in which you have been exposed to that geographic, global, cross-border opportunity for engagement, you will be that much better a negotiator, that much better a litigator in an international arbitration than you would be otherwise. So I think online education allows us to do that. Our aspiration is those programs should provide as good an experience, as good an education, as high quality and interaction as a student would get if the professor was sitting in the room with them in Delhi. So that really is why I think, again, today there is huge opportunities because the technology now allows us to do this in a much more significant and effective way.
Great. I fully appreciate and I understand where you are coming from. The accessibility, affordability, the cross-border engagements, and the technological advances. I think we need to combine, and I'm so glad that whilst we are sad about the several deaths because of coronavirus, but I must say that I am seeing the entire education system is getting rebooted virtually, and we all are rethinking and we all are redesigning virtually the entire education system, and that's a great advancement. I would say.
What are the opportunities for collaboration in India with degree programs, with executive education programs, with industry collaborations that will allow us to have that positive impact in terms of positioning India and the people of India and the industry of India to be able to thrive in India, in the United States, and all over the world. Texas A&M University is today the largest university in the United States. So we are a very large university now, 70,000 plus students we have at the university. It is also a university that is very much committed to advances in engineering, in computer science, and in other areas in which it has the opportunity to enhance the well-being and the health of the global community. One is India is a fast-growing country. Texas is a very fast-growing state. Texas is by many measures the fastest-growing state in the United States, in terms of population, in terms of corporate headquarters, in terms of economic growth. We are developing an online LLM in collaboration with LawSeco and others we are working with to create a online LLM program that we believe will, in a very cost-effective way, provide an excellent educational opportunity in the area of intellectual property law, patent law, business and commercial law, and arbitration and negotiation. We are collaborating with a number of law schools in India, with Jindal Global University, Global Law School, with GNLU, and with others we are talking to and collaborating with around creating programs that will allow a student to begin their studies for the LLM in India, then come to the United States for 1 semester to Texas A&M.
I see.
And earn their LLM. And not only earn their LLM, but earn their LLM from both institutions. Also expanding our programs for non-lawyers. So Texas A&M University has one of the biggest master's degree programs offered by a law school for non-lawyers. We are organizing symposia and conferences and executive roundtables together with industry partners in India as well.
I always believe that the academia and the industry connect both have to work very closely to each other. And the more and more we integrate industry and academia, I think the advancement of education, advancement of the knowledge, domain expertise in that area is going to just increase.
There is oftentimes what I think of as a false dichotomy that is created. There is practical education, industry training, executive education, and then there's academic education.
Yes.
I think actually both are incorrect. The reality is that an academic program that is not deeply intertwined with industry knowledge and insight and wisdom is not going to succeed. But to be clear, an industry program that says, we're just teaching you the basic stuff, we don't want any of this mumbo jumbo theory, ultimately is not preparing the people who are being trained for the reality that the world is going to look very different in 5 years and 10 years. And so if all that I am doing in my training is teaching you what is true now, rather than teaching you the questions to ask and how to prepare for that future, I'm not preparing you as a good employee. So really it is the case that industry needs academia and academia needs industry. Absolutely. In terms of programs.
Absolutely. Now, what would you say about the startup world or the SME or the small mid-sized companies, MSME companies? We have almost 6 million, MSME, micro and small entrepreneurs and startups. What would you advise them, or how do you see growth of that? How do you see academia playing a role in enhancing their capabilities in terms of marketing, HR, finances? How do you see that, panning out?
Absolutely. So again, the first thing I would say is, if you look at all the economic data, a huge amount of innovation and even huge amount of economic growth is not coming from the largest industries, right? Oftentimes it is coming from small, medium-sized enterprises and even micro enterprises. We have a very extensive network of clinics, we call them law clinics, that basically work with those who need legal services and need support for legal services, but can't afford to get them on the open market. So if we are smart as academic institutions, we do well to think about SMEs as a target audience because they, in some sense, may be more receptive.
One last question is, and very, very, very close to my heart is, and I always aspire that something needs to be done there. Is how do you see, internship, whether it is lawyers, whether it is accountants, or whether it is engineering students? How do you see, is there any scope for online internship for students from different streams?
I will say it's a brave new world we are living in. If you had asked me that 6 months ago, I would say, well, you can do it, but you can't do it very well. But the reality is my son is 18 years old. He's getting ready to go to college in 1 year. So he had all these internship plans that fell apart. So quickly he started sending some emails and making some phone calls, and now is doing these several internships that he's never met the people in person. He talks with them like this on Zoom. They have a Google Doc that they edit together. So the reality is that I think, again, the coronavirus in some ways has opened up people's minds to the universe of possibility in a different way. So what I would tell young people is don't shy away from pursuing the opportunity.
It was a pleasure talking to Ahdieh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Great pleasure for me as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.